Story 1. Funny you should ask. This is the 22nd anniversary of her passing. My dear friend Deborah, whom I met in 5th grade when she moved here from England, was my best friend until she died from a brain tumor when we were both 39. Story 2. All of them, but I mistreated them and manipulated them until they could not take it anymore, and they cut me out, deservedly. Story 3. My good friend died in a car accident when we were in high school. She was wonderful. It still hurts 31 years later. Story 4. My best friend from elementary school through college was in a head-on collision during our 3rd year of college while returning to school after a weekend visit home. Another friend died instantly, and my best friend was in a coma for over a month. When she regained consciousness, her memory was gone. She didn't recognize me or remember anything from our childhood. I tried to help her remember by talking about our past experiences, and we attempted to reconnect by spending time together, but ultimately it was too difficult. She didn't remember her parents, brother, or boyfriend. It was a challenging time, but every day I am thankful she survived. I miss her so much. She got married and had 2 kids, but her husband recently passed away. I still think about her often and will always cherish the wonderful times we had in high school and all of our memories. Story 5. My Siamese cat that I grew up with was my best friend, but she got old, as we all do, and passed away nearly 50 years ago. I still miss that spunky little cat. Story 6. I miss those who have left us too soon. John, I think of you often. I hope you are in a better place, my friend. Matt, I think of you just as often, and I miss our after-training talks. Paul, I miss you every day and still can't believe you are gone. Story 7. I really miss my former best friend. She was special. I hope she is happy and has found her happiness. Story 8. My best friend passed away 3 years ago. I miss him every day. He died 2 months before his wedding. Story 9. My best friend from childhood and I had a falling out in high school, after which she moved away. Not long after that, she became pregnant, gave birth, and started planning a wedding. She told her mother she intended to invite me. Then she tragically took her own life. She was only 20 or 21. Story 10. It was strange. There were 3 of us who were good friends. One of the 3 came to visit me while I was at university, and we had lunch together. He seemed to be in good spirits. Shortly after that, he vanished. He quit his job and shared a place with an acquaintance, and they both moved out with no forwarding address. He was predeceased by his parents. We tried to find him, but he had no social media presence, and his first and last names were extremely common. Then, after about 5 years, the 3rd member of our group remembered his middle name and searched for him online. It turned out he had been buried 3 months earlier and was impoverished when he died 6 months prior. He had been in the morgue until the municipality buried him. They didn't even know his date of birth, so all that was on his simple marker was the date he died. It was a terrible way to go for someone who had been a genuinely decent human being. Story 11. Most notably, my 2 childhood best friends. Unfortunately, during my teenage years, I fell into a deep depression and slowly distanced myself from everyone. This is my biggest life regret so far. Now that I am receiving treatment and becoming mentally sound, I think about those friendships almost daily. I currently do not have any friends, but I hope to change that. Story 12. My former best friend was right by my side during all my addiction issues. As soon as I got sober, she became vicious towards me. I will never truly understand why, and that is the hardest part because I believed I improved when I got sober. But it is what it is at this point. We haven't talked in 3 years, and I genuinely believe she didn't like me when I got my life together. She only liked me when I was struggling. Story 13. I had a coworker who became a good friend. He died of cancer several years ago, but he maintained a positive attitude until the end. I miss him. Story 14. My old best friend and I were friends for 10 years, but we gradually grew apart. The last time I reached out to him was to wish him a happy birthday, and he ignored me. That hurt, not going to lie. Story 15. I have a few thoughts. As we get older, we often miss the friendships that faded because we allowed them to slip away. I had a close friend in my 20s, but due to unwise choices and emotions, we stopped communicating. 10 years later, I realized how foolish and immature it all was. Story 16. She and I had a significant falling out over a man when we were in our early 20s. I had a strong crush on him, and we spent a lot of time together. She had never met him, but they connected and started a relationship that eventually led to marriage and then divorce. Obviously, neither of us cares about him more than 20 years later, but our friendship was effectively ruined. Story 17. My best friend passed away due to ruptured brain aneurysms a few months after my youngest son was born. I regret that she never got to see her daughter grow up, and I regret that I am now older than she was. Story 18. A best friend with whom I did everything ended her life a few years ago. I understand why, and I'm not angry that she made that choice. However, I have a completely different life now, and I'm sad she is not here to share it with me. I've grown less fearful, and we could have experienced so much more together. It's strange to talk about her with my husband, who never met her, or to discover new hobbies I know she would have loved. Story 19. I miss my friend Hannah. She was very similar to me, and we both had health issues. I could talk to her about anything. However, somewhere along the way, she became sick and we lost contact. She essentially disappeared from social media, and although I still have her email, she has never responded to anything I have sent since. I hope she is okay. I don't have many genuine friends anymore. I feel more alone now than before. Story 20. My friend Gregory and I worked together for about 4 years. During that time, he was diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis and I witnessed his deterioration. I always tried to be there for him when I could. He ultimately took his life a few months later when he could no longer cope with it. I still cry thinking about the pain he endured. Story 21. I miss my best friend Winnie. We were like sisters, but I moved to another state and we lost touch. She is still the best friend I have ever had. Story 22. I miss my best friend Mark. We met when we were 12 and we are over 60 now. We supported each other through thick and thin until things changed. I'm afraid he has become difficult to communicate with, even to me. I had to stop for my own mental health. I hope we can find each other again someday. It's truly unfortunate. Story 23. My best friend from college was an amazing woman, so generous and talented. We laughed all the time, and I was always welcomed into her family. I honestly thought we would be best friends forever. We were friends for over a decade. Then she got married quickly, and he seemed like a decent guy. Shortly after their wedding, he assaulted a woman I was good friends with. I accidentally walked in on it. People started talking and pieced together that he had done this to at least 5 women. We still tried to be friends, but she stopped talking to me when I was subpoenaed to testify at his trial. Somehow, he manipulated her and played the victim, blaming it on trauma. She was college-educated and making a 6-figure salary. I will never be able to understand. He took a plea deal and pleaded guilty. He served 20 days in jail and is on the registry for life. A few of her family members still talk to me, but no one seems to know anything. I love her and hope she is safe, but I cannot understand how she could enable and stand by a dangerous predator. Story 24. A dear friend from my primary school passed away from brain cancer at the age of 20. She would have accomplished great things. She was intelligent, kind, creative, and the hardest working person I ever encountered. I find myself thinking about her more as I get older, reflecting on how unfair it was that she experienced so little of life. Story 25. My family moved frequently when I was growing up. There were 2 schools I attended longer than any others. A primary school where I spent 2 years, left, and then returned for 3 years, and my high school, which I attended for 4 years before moving away again before my final year. At both of those schools, I made strong friendships. I didn't form lasting connections at the other schools because I wasn't there long enough. I tried to maintain those friendships, but after years of living in different cities, they faded away. I often feel jealous of people who have friends they've known since school and still regularly see and spend time with. I am still connected with all my old school friends on social media, and I see they all continue to hang out. Many are married with children, and they were all bridesmaids at each other's weddings. It makes me sad not to be a part of that. Story 26. My friend DJ was the most loyal friend, possibly the only one who was truly a friend. He was shot in a drive-by incident. The last time I saw him, we had an argument. Story 27. I had a best friend named Nevea when I was a kid. She lived on my street. We never went to school together, but we were instantly close as soon as her family moved into that house. My neighborhood wasn't very good. Many people would come and go. I was one of those, and so was she, just a lot quicker. She was there for maybe a summer or a bit longer. I can't exactly remember. I was only 7 at the time. However, I do remember she wrote me a note when she was moving out, telling me how much she was going to miss me, along with a little best friends forever pendant that I could tell she dug up from somewhere. That didn't matter to me, though. We sat on her porch and cried together because, even at our young age, we understood this was probably the last time we would see one another. And it was. She moved away, and I never saw or heard from her again. I haven't been able to find her on any social media either. She was a great friend and a sweet girl with a tough upbringing. I hope she's doing okay now. I always think of us climbing the tree in her yard together and swimming in her little kiddie pool. Story 28. I probably lost my best friend 6 to 7 years ago. While I miss all my friends to varying degrees, the fact that they are still alive and hopefully happy is somewhat comforting. Unfortunately, he missed out on so much due to the circumstances he faced and the choices he made. An infection that his body couldn't fend off, likely due to his struggle with alcohol. Story 29. I really miss some of my college friends. I know why we drifted apart, but I still think about the fun we had. I hope they are doing well. Story 30. My cousin and best friend. We were inseparable throughout school. She started dating a friend of my brother's and turned into a completely different person. I came home from school one day to my mom telling me that she had called and asked her to tell me she wanted nothing to do with me anymore. I was absolutely crushed. I haven't seen her since our senior year of high school and have not spoken to her in 18 years. I still haven't found someone who quite fits that void. I miss you, Evelyn. Story 31. My old best friend from middle school. I lashed out at him after losing my entire family to the foster system. Losing my family hurt, but the pain of losing my best friend after treating him poorly that day haunted me. I felt like a monster. I would give anything to tell him he meant more to me than anything. Unfortunately, we were just kids, and I was never open about my abusive home life, which made the surprise of my verbal attacks against him even worse. Story 32. A friend from Girl Scouts. Her name was Dawn, and she was a joy to be around. She drowned on a family trip to a local beach, and I have never forgotten her. Story 33. He was an aspiring chef, and it's a shame the world will never get to try his food. He was very kind and down to earth, always making those around him smile. Story 34. Jeremy, my best friend in preschool. I didn't know his last name, I never visited his house, and we were in the same preschool for about 5 months before his family moved. Additionally, there was another Jeremy, my cousin's old neighbor. He could do backflips. Story 35. My last best friend dropped me because I reported her boyfriend for vandalism, and she couldn't understand why I did it. I was an officer at the time and believed that even if friends did wrong, I must follow the law. Story 36. My best friend from the village I grew up in had a heart attack and died at the age of 32. For a couple of years in our early teens, we hung out every day. We drifted apart after that and both moved away from the village, but I would still bump into him at the pub when we were back visiting our families at Christmas. What I would give for one more beer with him. Story 37. Firstly, all my dogs. Chanel, Fergie, Benji, and Buddy. My horse, Blue. As for friends, my best friends from my neighborhood before my parents' divorce were Anna, Mackenzie, and Annie. Once I left the neighborhood, I lost touch with them. Anna was a little different. It turns out she comes from a very conservative family, while mine is liberal. I believe she ghosted me for that reason. Story 38. My best friend, David, committed suicide in 2021. We lived in different cities at the time. I miss being able to call him and talk for hours. The last time we hung out in person, We smoked a cigar together and drank whiskey on my balcony in my new apartment. We had a deep conversation. Looking back on it, I think he was saying goodbye. I wish I had seen the signs. Story 39. My best friend from high school committed suicide about 6 years ago, and I still think of him to this day. A few days prior to his death, he texted me to hang out because he needed to talk to someone and needed help, but I had told him I was busy. A few days later, he was gone. I still look at that text from time to time. It reminds me to always make time for the people I care about. Story 40. My best friend took their own life. They were on a combination of psychiatric medications, along with alcohol and marijuana addiction. It's a shame because they were a wonderful musician and would have probably made it big if they hadn't struggled with these issues. Took me 3 years to move on. Story 41. My college roommate. I swear she's my platonic soulmate. We experienced a lot together. I left town, and she left to hide from a difficult ex. We lost touch for 25 years and recently found each other on Facebook. I wish she lived closer, but I am going to make a trip to see her in the next 2 years if I can. Story 42. My best friend from college and I met in high school but attended different schools. In college, she was my ride or die. I miss her to this day, and we just fell out of touch. Story 43. My best friend throughout childhood. I thought we would be best friends for life. In a few weeks, it will be 10 years since the motor accident that took his life. Story 44. I met 2 people in high school. I was close with one of them and we made jokes together. The other is my old best friend. She was really cool and we kept in touch, but unfortunately, she lost her Instagram account and new phone number, so I can't reach out to her anymore. Story 45. One of my best friends from college fell into drug addiction and disappeared. It has now been 8 years, and no one from my college social group knows what happened to him. I hope he got sober and is doing well, but I have no idea what happened to him. Story 46. My friends from Virginia. When I lived there for 1 year as a child, they were very kind and welcoming. Unfortunately, I moved back home and lost contact. Story 47. My former best friend married my ex-boyfriend's brother. Now she has the last name I thought I would take. It's a strange experience, but I believe it's for the best. Story 48. My former best friend and I were very close, much like a friendship portrayed in a movie or television series. She was a special person in my life. I believe she developed alcohol or mental health issues or possibly both. At that time, we were living far apart. Nothing seemed to make sense. I even called her mother, asking her to visit. She became verbally abusive when I asked her about what was happening, such as losing custody of her child, among other issues. I had to sever ties because I couldn't continue sacrificing my own well-being for hers. I still miss the bond we once shared. Story 49. My former best friend and I would always stay at each other's houses as we grew up together. I had to move away, and he got a long-term girlfriend. I haven't seen him in nearly 6 years, and I miss him every day. Story 50. There were several of them. I wish they could have stuck around, but we all have our own endeavors to pursue, even if it involves moving somewhere else for work or school. Story 51. My friend in high school and I used to clash due to male rivalry, and his cousin would often provoke me. One day, he asked me to buy him a JUL since he was underage, so I agreed. He gave me too much money because we were unsure of the total cost. I returned the change, which he appreciated, believing it showed my trustworthiness since I could have kept it without telling him. We began hanging out more often, and I met his family and stayed over at their house. During college breaks, I had no place to stay, so I lived with him, his mother, and her boyfriend. I also met his father's girlfriend and his paternal grandmother. I attended his family's funerals, went out to eat, spent time together nearly every day when we could, and we smoked weed together. At that age, I was quite immature and dealing with mild depression, not to mention living on my own during my first year of college, where I mostly partied every day. Gradually, we started to clash again and spent less time together. I realize now that I wasn't fair to him and was taking advantage of the kindness and generosity of him and his family. I don't blame him for the deterioration of our friendship. I take full responsibility and understand his perspective. The moral of the story is that I regret not recognizing I had a true friend and ultimately ruining that relationship. I wish him well, but I do not reach out anymore. It has been about 6 years since then, and I occasionally wonder how he is doing. He was a true friend. Story 52. Dave took his own life. He trained for war but not for the adjustment to civilian life. A great guy, respected by all, who always stood up for others. Sadly, none of us could help him. Rest in peace, brother. Story 53. One of my longtime friends passed away from cancer a year ago this past April. I think of her many times a day and miss her. Story 54. I have an online friend with whom I talk a lot, but I enjoy their company in the end. I have admired them because I am easily drawn to people who are not afraid to speak their minds. Unfortunately, we drifted apart and I don't think much about them anymore. Yet, a part of me still misses them and wishes I were a better person. Story 55. I lost my best friend to drugs when we were 19. It's been almost 12 years since then, and several times a week, I find myself wishing I could have shared experiences with him or talked to him about what I've been going through. Story 56. My old best friend had feelings for me, but I friend-zoned her, which drove her crazy. We eventually stopped being friends after an unhappy encounter that she initiated. Despite this, I loved her and we got along really well. I believe we complemented each other. I suspect I would have stayed friends with her for the rest of my life if feelings had not gotten involved. Story 57. My best friend was the most supportive person I have ever met. Unfortunately, he met me during the worst time of my life, and I was overwhelmed emotionally. I miss him greatly. Story 58. My friend Dennis committed suicide in 2004. I also had a girlfriend from Oakland in 1999, though she dislikes me. I had a girlfriend from Costa Rica who lived in San Francisco from 2000 to 2012. I had 2 girlfriends from Brazil and Mike Key from Chicago. Story 59. My boy Ronnie. I'm pretty sure you were my soulmate. I'm sorry I didn't come to see you, buddy. I couldn't bear to see you like that. 21 was too young, man. I hate cancer. Story 60. My friend Rick died of cancer in 2020. My friend Daniel hanged himself in 2018. They were like my brothers. Story 61. I miss my old friend group from my ex. We would spend the entire day playing board games, laughing, and eating. We still keep in touch on Instagram to ensure we are doing okay. But I miss the interaction and fun. Everyone kind of split after my ex and I broke up. Everything happens for a reason, I guess. Story 62. I miss a few of my old school friends and some work friends. Some left when times got tough for me, and another distanced herself when she got into a relationship. She was upset that I don't share her belief that I need a partner to be happy. I wish them all the best. Story 63. I miss one of my best friends who stopped communicating with me after I was in an abusive relationship. Her boyfriend at the time told her it was a crime to associate with a victim of domestic violence, which scared her into blocking me everywhere. Story 64. I had a group of friends, around 6 or 7 guys, from whom I started distancing myself about 12 years ago during a complicated relationship. I miss and love those guys very much. I really hope life is treating them well. Story 65. My high school best friend. A few years after high school, we gradually stopped communicating. She became pregnant, which really changed her. We reconnected a few years ago, but she was completely different and negative, so we stopped talking again. I no longer have her phone number. Story 66. My old gym buddy was a funny guy and a brilliant motivator when we trained together. Sadly, a number of years ago, he stood as a town councilor for a political party I am strongly opposed to. This happened around the same time I moved away, and his involvement with that party contributed to my lack of effort in keeping in contact. We would probably still get along if we crossed paths, but neither of us seems inclined to keep in touch. Story 67. My best friend from junior high through high school. We met on the last day of 8th grade and quickly became close friends. He even lived with my family for almost a year when his parents decided to move during our junior year. He stayed with us to finish his junior year with me and his other friends. He then moved back to his mom and dad across the country and completed his senior year. They kicked him out when he turned 18. He got a job and suddenly became a born-again Christian. He had limited contact with me after that because I wasn't a Christian, and he would write letters urging me to repent and become born again. I said no. That was his life, not mine, so he stopped writing. He moved to Guam to become a missionary, got married, had some children, and then I lost track of him in the mid-1980s. Story 68. My best friend in high school was my first love. We went out briefly but decided to remain friends after I moved 40 miles away. We were 13 or 14, so it was a completely innocent, puppy love kind of situation. We would talk on the phone for hours every single day without fail, and everyone who knew us understood we were a package deal. He even started attending the same college as me to be closer, since in the UK, college is from ages 16 to 18. When I was 17, I met a boy who I was foolishly with for a couple of years. He was very jealous and controlling, which limited my communication with my friend. My friend also fell in with a bad crowd and started using drugs. At one point, his father came to me because things were getting really bad. I thought I was helping by talking to him, but my friend understandably got upset with me for speaking to his dad about it, which strained our relationship further. For various reasons, including this, we drifted apart. I hear from him every couple of years and we catch up. I'm 36 now, but I wish I could go back and change things because he was one of the greatest friends I ever had, and I still miss him and the friendship we shared. Spazwinky, if you're reading this, you were the absolute best. Story 69. My former best friend and I had a falling out at 19 due to my difficulty in managing friendships and failing to respect her boundaries. Now at 25, I look back and realize how wrong I was. Since then, I have been in therapy and have worked on myself. We share the same group of friends, so we see each other every few months. I apologized for my behavior and for failing to respect her feelings, and she accepted my apology. However, nothing has been the same since. I am open to being friends again, and we act cordial with each other whenever we hang out as a group, but it will never be the same. I still have a lot of love for her and just wish things could be different. Story 70. I moved to a different country, and we gradually grew apart. I still think of her occasionally. Story 71. My high school best friend and I were inseparable. We went on summer holidays together, but when he returned, he was a completely different person. Some days I miss him, and other days I think about how things have changed. Story 72. I miss my mom, who was like my best friend. She had a traumatic brain injury over a year ago, which led to early dementia, and now she is in hospice care. Truly feels like a long goodbye. I also miss my former best friend, who gradually decided that I was not a true friend. She was admittedly needy and somewhat judgmental, but I still miss having her in my life and all the good times we shared. After a decade of friendship, it became clear that she expected far more attention and devotion than I could provide. Ironically, her all-or-nothing attitude was one of the qualities I respected about her, but it is a tiring way to live as a friend. Story 73. My best friend had a problem with alcoholism that really derailed her life during our late 20s. She missed my wedding because of rehab and went several times afterward as well. Her pride and struggle with alcoholism ruined our relationship. She has never met my child, and I am currently pregnant with my second child, which she does not even know, as we haven't talked in almost a year. I think about calling her almost every day, but she has not called me either. I haven't seen her in nearly 4 years, but we tried to keep in touch over the phone. I offered to fly her out several times over the years, but she never accepted. I miss her so much. Story 74. I miss my friend Robert. He moved back to Australia about 2 or 3 years ago, but he didn't inform me, so one day he was just gone. I knew he was moving, but I didn't know when. I still think about him, and even some friends I had back then mentioned that they miss him too. Story 75. A classmate in high school talked to me and touched my private parts in front of everyone as a challenge set by her friend. From that moment, we became best friends, treating each other like boyfriends without being in a romantic relationship. I miss her because we had a strong connection, and we always shared everything. I've never found that in any other friendships. Story 76. My old magic. The gathering and just general hanging out and talking about life with my friend. I moved away to better myself 8 years ago today. I just saw a video of him and me on my feed, which made me remember our last night together. We both went through a lot of tragedy and had each other to lean on at that time. He has moved on and now has a family. I'm very happy for him and glad he's able to continue with life, but I still miss him. We didn't part on bad terms, we just said goodbye. Story 77. I had an online group of friends in high school. We hung out, played games, and chatted most days. Nothing too significant happened. It mostly just drifted apart. Many are now in college, focusing on their studies and new friend groups. I still chat with some of them occasionally, but I miss having that group to connect with regularly. Story 78. I miss my best friend from middle school. He was very funny. The thing is, we shared a geeky sense of humor. We formed a close group of like-minded individuals, and it was a great time. Over time, we began making more friends until there wasn't enough room at the lunch tables anymore. Then high school came and he abandoned us to join more popular people, and we completely lost contact. Social climbers can be frustrating. He completely disregarded our friendship after that. Story 79. Kate was like a sister to me. My parents took her in, and she went on family vacations with us. A misunderstanding caused her to leave, and our relationship never recovered. It has been 10 years this year. Story 80. I worked with someone 40 years ago in the same office and we got along very well. We had many nights out and fun together, but she sadly died in a car accident 30 years ago, and I was devastated. I couldn't attend her funeral because I was away on holiday at the time, and I never got to say goodbye to her properly. I didn't have any photos of her until recently when I cleared through my mother's belongings and found all the home videotapes that had been kept. On one of the tapes, there is a minute's worth of a mutual friend's wedding, and for a few seconds my friend appears on screen. I cannot describe the emotions I experienced seeing her. I had completely forgotten that I took my father's video camera with me to that wedding. She is in that footage exactly as I remember her, and I still miss her. Story 81. A dear friend thought she was going through menopause. Turns out she had stage 4 leukemia. She was gone a couple of months later. I miss you, Carol. Story 82. It has been 9 years and I think about her most days. It is a shame when things do not work out, and despite the promises made to always be friends, we still drifted apart and will most likely never be in touch again. It is sad, but what can you do? Fate is sealed. Story 83. Rest in peace, Frankie. You were my only friend growing up who wasn't a Jehovah's Witness. I wonder what you would be doing today. Story 84. My school friends from last year ended for a bad reason, but sometimes it hurts because they were the best I've ever had. I also miss a friend from 5th grade. We got along really well at the time and probably still do today. Story 85. A friend from college. We used to visit diners or dive bars and spend late nights drinking Pabst Blue Ribbon and discussing life. We stayed in touch for a while, but eventually we both got married, moved to different parts of the country, and drifted apart. Story 86. My ex-best friend, her boyfriend, my husband, and I all moved into an apartment together. It was the worst decision we ever made. They were terrible roommates who never cleaned up after themselves or their dog. They also wouldn't pay their share of the bills. I am so glad they decided to move out after 6 months. I never spoke to her again after that. That was 17 years ago. Story 87. I had a unique connection with a friend last year. I had never met someone with whom I felt so compatible. Not even my own partner. My boyfriend developed feelings for him. We haven't really talked since, and now he avoids me. Story 88. I had a friend in college. We are still friends on social media, but she usually doesn't respond timely, if at all, which is why the friendship faded in the first place. I miss her. I thought that adding her again would lead to different outcomes and that we could rekindle the friendship. Story 89. My friend Sophia. We worked together in a cafe when I was in my last years of high school, and she was in her first years of college. She helped me relearn reality after I came out of an abusive relationship that had happened before I met her. I would pick her up sometimes in my old Volvo station wagon when we worked on the same days if there was too much snow for her to get her car out. We would hang out outside of work when we could, but her boyfriend at the time was very controlling and manipulative. She had beautiful eyes and the kindest smile. She helped me by setting aside or labeling certain colored stickers to mark the expiration of baked goods, since I am colorblind and could not tell the difference between red, orange, and purple. Life did not treat her fairly. She deserved much better just by how she treated others. She left the company, and I found myself not wanting to work there without her anymore. We had said we would work someplace together, but it did not pan out. We kept in touch for some time after that until about 6 to 8 months later. Neither of us was doing very well mentally at that time. One day, she just stopped returning my texts. Sophia, if by some chance you are reading this, I miss you. My number has not changed. I live halfway around the world now, but I have kept my number the same in case you call. Story 90. The one I miss the most is Scott. We were so close in high school and stayed close through college, but his last girlfriend in college really did not like him having a female best friend, or maybe she just had a problem with me. I don't know. We just grew apart. I do miss him. I miss him so much and would give anything to just have a coffee with him and catch up on life. Or just do the old drive from Ohio State University back up to West. I was just telling a friend here about the ball jousting club they started and the fight club in the parking lot where he knocked out one of Sean's teeth. Yes, he is the one I miss the most and wish we could have kept in touch. On the miraculous chance he finds this, I still have that letter you wrote me. It's in a box of things I've saved and stored at my parents' house. I hope I will remember to grab it and bring it back with me next time I'm in the United States. Miss you, friend Chris. Story 91. My ex-best friend. We experienced homelessness, heartbreak, and so much together. However, I was an alcoholic and couldn't be honest or get my life together for her to remain in my life. I am a year and a half sober now, and I will always miss her. Story 92. My childhood friend David. His parents were divorced, so he stayed at his father's house every weekend and summer. Then his mother moved to Maine, and he chose to live with her. His visits became far less frequent, and eventually, once he turned 18, he stopped coming altogether. He doesn't have social media and didn't even have an instant messaging account, and this was before every kid or teenager had a phone, so I completely lost contact with him. The last time I saw him was back in 2006. I hope he's doing well. He was a big part of my childhood. We became friends because he was always riding his bike by my house, doing this weird little hand dance thing. I can't describe it, but he was showing off that he could ride with no hands. I asked him why he did that, and boom, we started saying hello to each other and quickly became friends. Story 93. My friend Jenny and I have known each other since we were 4 years old. I am now 44. We often lost contact but always met again in random places around the country. She truly saw me as I saw her. We adored each other and always engaged in the silliest antics. A few years ago, she reached out to me to come and stay with me indefinitely. However, as a single mother of small children, and considering she was partying quite often at the time, I thought it was best for her not to come. A year later, she passed away. I love you, Jenny, and I know you're with me, visiting me in the form of blackbirds. I promise to do what we always planned. Story 94. I lost many friends when I got back together with my abusive ex. I understand why, but that doesn't make it hurt any less. And it has made me hold on to him even more. Story 95. I lost a friend in a motorcycle accident. We weren't in touch for trivial reasons, and it haunts me. Story 96. Christina. My best friend from university. We knew each other's secrets and did everything together. I don't even know why we stopped being friends. She just told me one day that she wouldn't be talking to me anymore. If you're here, Christina, I have a letter for you, and I really miss you. Story 97. Of all the friendships I have ended, I only regret one. A few years ago, we reconnected on social media, and it has been nice, but it is not the same. We live far apart, like a 4-hour plane ride, and we do not chat on the phone anymore. It was mostly my choice at the time, so I am happy she was willing to reconnect at all. Story 98. My ex-boyfriend and best friend. We could never truly be just friends, but I miss the friendship the most, more than anything. I've spoken to him from time to time, and so has he, but we have to move on from each other. I'll miss him longer than I've known him now. I'll never have a connection like that with anyone else. It's sad how our lives intertwine without consent. Story 99. Nobody. I either had to remove them from my life because they were not good for me, or they removed me, and I realized they were not good for me. It's a win-win situation. Story 100. I just learned from another Reddit thread that missing someone is almost a physical feeling and can resemble pain. I have never experienced this sensation in my entire 43 years of life. I thought saying, "I miss you," was a way to acknowledge that you haven't seen someone for a while, or to make them feel happy at the thought. I never realized it was an actual sensation. Story 101. My baby brother died on his 29th birthday while coming home from his party. I miss him and his friendship every day. Story 102. She frequently changed what she liked to be called, from Neen Gal to Nu, but her true name was Zara. She had experienced significant trauma in her life and came from a unique background. Talking to her and witnessing the mental struggles her trauma caused inspired me to become a psychologist. One day, I simply stopped hearing from her, and it has been a couple of years since we last communicated. But I will never forget the person who confirmed the path I should take. Story 103. My best friend from 8th grade through college and beyond was a brilliant mathematician, probably the only true genius I ever knew. We drifted apart after I got married and had kids. Not that it was the cause, it just happens. I found out recently that he passed away in 2018. I contacted his sister and learned about the circumstances of his death. Ultimately, it was his heart that failed, but he had been in failing health for years. I wasn't surprised, though I didn't express that to her. He always prioritized other things over his health. He was always overweight and never had a decent diet, subsisting on junk food. He rarely saw a dentist and had to get dentures in his 50s. Like I said, he was super smart, but at the same time made some poor choices. I still miss him and think of him often. Story 104. Only the one that passed. My brother from another mother, Timmy, was one of the kindest souls you would ever meet. He would give the shirt off his back, the shoes off his feet, or his last dollar to a stranger. He would also defend you with confidence and wise wit or threats of bodily harm if necessary. A true friend and brother. I could not save him from his demons in the end, but he lives on in my memories. I am not crying, just something in my eyes. Story 105. Ah, yes, the one that grew apart. I met my husband and he became really distant, even more than before. We tried to maintain a friendship. I moved, and he moved. We had a lot of fun together. We were both very active and somewhat competitive. He had a great sense of humor, and I really enjoyed his company. He felt like a safe person to be around. One time, I spent the night at his house, and he told me not to touch him. I didn't plan on it. He turned over and lay at the opposite corner of the king-size bed, making me sleep on the other corner. That memory will always stick out in my mind. Don't touch me. It was strange. Story 106. I really miss my old best friend. Even though we haven't spoken in about 10 years. I was in a bad place and was a real downer. She needed to protect her peace from me. I've gotten worse, so she definitely made the right choice for herself. I still miss her, and it still stings, but I'm proud of her for choosing herself. I know she has a wonderful life now. Story 107. One of my best friends from high school through college years was someone I used to spend a lot of time with. We would walk home from work together and chat for a long time before heading home. Suddenly, he changed overnight and stopped talking to me and our other friends. No matter how much I tried to reach out and ask what was wrong, he wouldn't respond. We eventually went our separate ways, and I haven't seen or heard anything about him for about 20 years. I still have no idea what was happening with him. I miss our conversations. Story 108. I had a best friend growing up. We were inseparable, the usual type of friendship where his girlfriend disliked how close I was to her boyfriend. Our bond blossomed from the animosity we initially felt toward each other. As we grew up, we made plans to leave the city and move across the country. He wanted to bring Michelle, his girlfriend, but I told him I didn't think it would work out. I suggested that we could at least try it, tell her we were going on vacation, and see if we could handle having her around us. However, no matter what, I said he couldn't tell her we were planning on moving and about our business plans. Michelle approached me and asked when she could expect the money to start coming in. I told her that was my only condition. I left without him. I still think of him from time to time and wonder how life turned out. But I knew I couldn't trust him at that point, and he hadn't learned the same lessons I had, even at a younger age. Story 109. Wow, great question. I just had a weekend with a friend I hadn't seen or talked to in more than 40 years. It was good for my soul. Story 110. My best friend moved to Idaho. We lived in California and connected through wrestling. We would watch every pay-per-view and discuss wrestling during the events. I miss that, talking to someone knowledgeable about wrestling. Now, it's just me alone watching and having no one to share the moments with. There have been many crazy moments, and I find myself thinking how much cooler it would be if someone else were there to share them. Come back, Mike. Story 111. Beth, Diana, and Patty supported me during one of the toughest times in my life. However, I eventually had to move from the Denver area to the Colorado Springs area, and life goes on. Story 112. My best friend from college was killed in a car accident the weekend I was going to ask him to be my best man. After 45 years, I still think of him regularly. Story 113. A high school friend of mine, whom I later realized I had a crush on, became significant to me 3 to 4 years later. Long story short, I changed schools. He was one of the few who invited me to sit next to him, and we hit it off well. He was funny, kind, and had a heart of gold, in my opinion. However, I struggled with my own emotional insecurities and issues that I didn't know how to handle. In the end, he made a very positive impact on my life. Sadly, after graduation, I didn't see him much anymore. I still have his Facebook and notice him log in from time to time, so I wish him happy birthdays, but I never posted anything or received replies to my direct messages when I asked how he was doing. He kind of just disappeared from social interactions. I miss him a lot and hope he is doing well and isn't in a difficult situation. Story 114. My former best friend and I grew apart when she fell in with a negative crowd. We reconnected a few times as young adults, but the distance between us was too great. She passed away several years ago, and I wish I had the opportunity to meet her husband and her children. I saw her daughter once when she was only 2 years old, and I later looked up her husband. Her daughter resembles her closely. Story 115. I had a best friend from ages 12 to 16 who was a significant part of my adolescence. They suddenly stopped communicating with me and another girl we were friends with. I miss them very much and wish I had more closure. I wrote this poem for them recently. Friend, it has been years since you last spoke to me. It is painful to know that you only remember me as an angry teenager. I want you to know that I remember you, the ease of your laugh. Still, after all this time, I remember how you always seemed one step ahead of the rest of us, tuned in to a higher frequency. All I would like to know is if you are okay now, if your anger has become a friend, if you have forgiven yourself for the sin you never committed. I would like to walk around in your mind someday. Story 116. My best friend Ileana, from high school and college, passed away at a young age of 24 in 2005 due to brain cancer. I think about her often and still miss her greatly. Story 117. Lori was my best friend for 20 years, since high school. I was not a good person back then and didn't realize how self-centered and generally awful I was. We had a falling out over a Christmas card. I still can't believe she is gone, and it has been 10 years at this point. I always love you and wish you the best, Lori. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.